Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hai bol, hai Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Kavi, 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 Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome this morning to Srimad Bhagavatam class, which is from Canto 1, Chapter 15. The chapter is entitled The Pandavas Retire Timely. And we'll look at text 22 and 23. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Upijana Vallabha Girivadadhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radhama Dava Inja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Nitai Gora Chandra Nitai Gora Chandra Gora Hari Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gora Hari Bol Jai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gora Hari Bol Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satasya Mara Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shivopad Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishna Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satasya Mara Divine Grace Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Bhupad Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Hayas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवरान की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय मायापुर धाम की जय गंगा मई की जय यमुनामयी की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय समवेद भक्तवृंद की जय Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari 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 Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, Lord Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sthapana Sri Guru Karuna Shakti Bhakti. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees. So, we'll start with the text 22 and then 23, as you see on the screen now. Rajam Swayanuprishtanam Suhridam na Suhridpure Viprashapa Vimudhanam Nignatam Mushtibirmita Varunim Madiram Pidva Madon Matita Chetasam Ajanatam Ivanyonyam Chatu Pancha Vasheshitam Rajam Swajanu Prishtanam Suhridam Na Suhrid Pure Viprashapa Vimudhanam Nignatam Mushtibir Mitam Varunim Madiram Pitva Madhun Matita Chestasam Ajanatam Ivanyonyam Chatu Pancha Vasheshita Rajam Swayanu Prishtanam Suhridam Nasukrit Pure Viprashapa Vimudanam Nignatam Mushtibir Vita Varune Madiram Pitva Madhun Matita Chetasam Ajanatam Ivanyonyam Chatu Panchavasheshita. Hare Krishna. If you want to stand, you can unmute yourself and do that now. Hare Krishna. Anyone? Don't be shy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, well, let me try.
Yeah.
Rajam stvaya nuprushtanam suhrudan suhrutpure viprashap vimudham nighantam mushti bhirmitha varunim madiram pitva mando mathita chetasam ajanata mivanyonam chatu panchavashishtaha.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful. Anyone else? Okay, we'll do the word for word now. Rajan, O king, Tvaya, by you, Anuprishtanam, as you inquired, Suhridam, of friends and relatives, Na, our, Suhridpure, in the city of Dwarka, Vipra, the Brahmanas, Shapa, by the curse of, Vimudanam, of the befooled, Nignatam, of the killed, Mushtibi, with bunches of sticks, Mita, among themselves, Varunim, fermented rice, Madiram, wine, Pitva, having drunk, Mada on Matita, being intoxicated, Chetasam, of that mental situation, Ajanatam, of the unrecognized, Eva, like, Anyonyam, one another, Chatu, 4, Pancha, 5, Avasheshita, now remaining. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O King, since you've asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now, but all 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. That's 24. I'll go back. Right. So, Oma Gyanati Mirandasya, Gyana Gyana Shalakaya, Chakshu Omalitam Yena, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadatika. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaistabam Cha. Sirupa Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajiva Sagvitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Sivishakam Vitam Sa. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Paramani Hari Priya. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhya eva cha Chaitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Dvaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavin. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirveshesha Sunyabadi Paschatiyari Sachari. Mo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanyanam Nigurati Namaha. Nanda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himadhyati Vacha Vishudavaya Tasvi Mahaprema Raspadaya. Chaitanya Chandrai Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandrai Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandrai Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandrai Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. The translation again. O King, since you've asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of vitrified rice and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now, all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. So this is Arjuna addressing the situation in Dwarka. He has gone there. He realizes Krishna has left. And now he's seeing the situation in the city also. Now, the king here is King Yudhishthira, Arjuna's older brother. And Arjuna is informing Yudhishthira that you asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka, so I have to tell you what's happened. What has happened is that they all have been cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they become intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought among themselves, and they didn't even recognize one another. So about 4 or 5 of them are only remaining, every one of them is gone. Well, the details given about that is the fighting took place at Prabhashetra, and there were 560 million Kshatriyas, warriors, that fought among each other. Krishna was there, Balaram was there at that time. There's a whole story behind it. So it starts from the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, when the 640 million soldiers were killed, among them the 100 sons of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, the king and the queen of Hastinapur. All their sons were killed. And in that situation, Gandhari was very upset, not to mention the fact that Dhritarashtra was also upset. So Krishna came to Gandhari, offered condolences. And Gandhari got upset with Krishna because Gandhari knew Krishna's power. And even before the war, she had prayed to Lord Shiva, who's a very, very staunch disciple of Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva appeared to him in a dream, and he felt very sorry for Gandhari because there was supposed to be a fire in the palace. So that was the indication to Gandhari that things that are going to happen will not be pleasing at all. Bad omens were beginning to show in the dream. She had talked to her husband, trying to convince him, to keep the war from coming to his doorstep. Do whatever Krishna has asked. And Krishna only asked for 5 villages for the 5 Pandavas because they are Kshatriyas, and Kshatriyas are administrators and warriors and protectors of people. You want Indraprasth, take it. Where the rest of the world, take it. Just give 5 villages. And Duryodhana wouldn't do that. And his father, the king, did not overrule him. And so the war started. And just like the hint that was given to Gandhari by Lord Shiva, the house burned down, which means all of the sons of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra were killed. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, when Krishna gave a little audience, darshan, to Gandhari, Gandhari said to Krishna, all my sons are killed. You could have prevented the war. You didn't. Actually, it was Dhritarashtra it was his duty. The Lord can do everything, but it was Dhritarashtra's duty to prevent the war. He didn't do that, so the war came, and now his sons are all killed. So then Gandhari said, just like you, my sons are killed, your dynasty, Yadu dynasty in Dwarka, will also be finished. So Gandhari started this. Krishna did not counteract that statement, that wish, that curse. Now, so this was going on. Gandhari now has said this. She leaves with her husband, and Vidura comes to take him away. Now, Yudhishthira is king. Arjuna is going to Dwarka and found out that this is what has happened. Horrible. Millions and hundreds of millions of people are dead. And we got the details of how that happened. Okay. I apologize for sound outside if you hear the workmen doing some cleaning up of our area. Unfortunately, probably it's coming through the microphone or this computer. So anyway, how did this happen? We mentioned Gandhari, and now, of course, the text said that it was cursed by the Brahmanas. So what had happened was that the Brahmanas had congregated, as they normally do, in the forest. They do meditations. They do a lot of things for the welfare of humanity. So in Dwarka, Krishna had sons from the wives, 10 sons each, from the 16,000 wives they had. They also had sons. I mean, they also had children, 10 each. So millions from Krishna's direct family members. One of the sons of Krishna is called Shamba. Shamba and his other brothers, friends, and so on, they decided to play a trick with the Brahmanas. So they changed Shamba's clothes and fitted him with clothes of a woman, so he would look like a woman. And then they put some cloth in his stomach and extended it so that he would look like he was pregnant. So Shamba was dressed like that. Everybody thought that they were playing a joke. It's just a joke. But Shamba looking like a woman, pregnant woman at that. So these other people in Dwarka went with Shamba to the Brahmanas, and then they addressed the Brahmanas. Oh, Brahmanas, you who know past, present, and future, please tell us what kind of child would come from the womb of this pregnant woman. Now, they knew very well they were playing a joke. But then they were right. The Brahmanas did, in fact, know past, present, and future, and they can read people's minds. So they all knew that these boys were playing a trick on them. And they responded that your pregnant woman will give birth to an iron rod, and that would be the way in which your dynasty will be destroyed. Now, when they heard that, they were very, 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 very afraid. So Shamba went away, took the clothes of the woman off, took the cloth from its stomach, and lo and behold, there was an iron rod. So then they realized that the curse just might come true. So then they went into Maharaj Ugrasen, the king at Dwarka, and reported what had happened. And Ugrasen said, that's not good, to say the least. So he ordered that the iron rod be crushed into a powder form and thrown into the sea, into the water. So they did that. But there was a part that was not quite crushed into a powder. And that was later on discovered by a hunter called Jara. Because what happened was that in the river, a fish swallowed that piece, and the fish was caught. And then when the fish was dissected, this Jara then got the small piece was there, big enough actually to fashion an arrow tip with it. And Jara was a hunter, and he decided to use the iron piece that way. The rest of the iron powder that was in the water washed ashore and mixed in with some reeds that were at the shore. And so the reeds grew, and the reeds were fortified by iron because iron powders mixed in with the seed and grew like that. And those were at the shore of that, in the Prabhu area. So there were some signs later on that were bad omens. And this was in Dwarka. And Krishna told the Kshatriyas that we see these signs, and these signs are not good signs. So let's go to a place of the holy place and perform some yagya, some sacrifices to counteract whatever's supposed to happen. So they went. And because there's so much camaraderie, they knew each other, they loved each other. And so after they finished, Krishna was there, Balaram was there, and all these soldiers, 560 million of them, they all went. And when they finished with the procedure for the yagyas, then they started drinking, which is made here, wine made of purified rice. And when they started drinking, they became quite drunk. And when the person is drunk, the sense of, they don't think straight, to put it that way. And so under the intoxication, they started talking about each other, teasing each other. Oh, you're not such a great Kshatriya, this happened, and you had issues, and when you're fighting this war and so on. They just talked all kinds of things. And that, the intoxication and the teasing, some people didn't take it nicely. They didn't take it well. And they're Kshatriyas. And so when they got upset, they pulled their weapons and started fighting each other because they had taunted each other. This is what actually happened. From the taunting, they got upset with each other, they started fighting each other. And they fought, and they fought, and they killed each other. And they fought until all the weapons were used up. And then some of them saw the reeds. And the reeds looked very strong, but those were the reeds that had been fortified by the powder from the iron that the Brahmanas cursed them, cursed Samba, and those with him, that the dynasty would be destroyed that way. So they took the reeds and started fighting with each other. They killed each other, tried to, do all kinds of horrible things. And so one by one, they were killing themselves. Now, Krishna Balaram being there tried to stop them from fighting, but they were intoxicated. And so they started fighting Krishna Balaram. So Krishna Balaram realized that they won't be able to change the minds of these people. Got away from them. They killed each other. And so that's all but 4 or 5 of them, except a few of them were left. The rest were all killed. Balaram sat on the side of the river at Prabhu, went into meditation, and he left. Now, Krishna, I remember we mentioned this hunter that got fish, the fish that has swallowed that larger piece of iron. He fashioned it into an arrow, and he was in the forest near Pariksit, and he was hunting. And Krishna sat down. Krishna's foot, underneath the foot, is red in color. And so he was sitting. And this hunter from a long distance did not see Krishna properly, but he saw that red color. From a distance, he thought that that was a deer, or maybe the head of a deer. So he shot an arrow at it, which glanced Krishna's foot. From that point, Krishna also left. So this is what actually happened. The curse was from Gandhari first, and then, of course, they got even a second curse. Gandhari predicted what was going to happen. Very annoyed because the 100 sons of hers were killed in the Battle of Kurukshetra. She blamed Krishna, and now Samba wanted to play a game with the Brahmanas, and they told the Brahmanas cursed them that the iron rod that would come from the stomach, so-called pregnant part of the body, will be the destruction. So Krishna was actually wrapping up the pastime, just getting ready to go. Those in the Yadu dynasty were those that were told that they should take birth. They, the demigods, should take birth in the Yadu dynasty. So some of the members of the Yadu dynasty were, in fact, demigods. And some were those that came with Krishna also, because when Krishna and Balaram come, then some of the very, very confidential associates in the spiritual world also come with them. The queens were also there. The queens, of course, did not go into fighting. They were protected. Arjun tried to protect them, but that's another story. I think it was before this. Arjun was also stripped of his power, so that with the same Gandhi, he couldn't even fight people who were not anywhere near Arjun's expertise in fighting. So when Krishna decides to, by his supreme will, to come up with a particular activity, everything is, for Krishna's activity, transcendental. Janma karma chame divyam. He says that my birth and activities are transcendental, and those who are divine, and those who understand that, they will be liberated from this material world, and they will never have to come back to the material world anymore. So the idea of Krishna going through this process to get 560 million people to leave, just like in 640 million people were also killed in the Battle of Kurukshetra. If you add that up, that is 1.2 billion. 1,200,000,000 Kshatriyas left between the Battle of Kurukshetra and also the battle at Pariksit. So for the Pariksit one, the people in the city of Dwarka, that was the way in which Krishna chose for them to leave their bodies, because after all, they were soldiers, they were Kshatriyas, to leave the bodies, and therefore the souls will go back to the spiritual world. And that is what we got to understand. The material world is not our home. And so in any kind of way in which Krishna makes a person leave the physical body and go back to the spiritual world is auspicious. And of course, leaving the material body, the method in which that is done is what we call death. The soul comes out of the body, the soul then expands to his original form and goes to the spiritual world. So some of the demigods that had taken birth in the Yadu dynasty now got an opportunity to go back to the spiritual world. So even though there were curses involved in it, even though there were curses from Gandhari, curses from the Brahmanas, Krishna uses even what seems to be a horrible situation and turns it into a situation where there is liberation. The soul now comes out of the body and goes back. So we also have seen, even in this society of this planet, international Society for Krishna Consciousness. There are some of our leaders who have left in different ways. Dr. Churu Swami left because there was a disease, a pandemic. And Krishna allowed him to leave the body that way. There are people who have left as a result of cancer. Maghu Maharaj that way. There are some that left from an accident. Tamar Krishna Goswami that way, from a car accident. But the important thing is Krishna is only looking at the soul coming out of the body and going back to back home to the spiritual world, which is full of all knowledge, full of eternity. I mean, and it's eternal. Every soul is eternal. Every soul has all knowledge, and every soul is eternally happy, blissful. So it is a much, much, much better situation than this, what we're in now in the material world, when we have to work hard for everything, and we are full of anxiety. One thing happens after another, and they're full of misery, sometimes from our own minds, sometimes from different situations, from other living entities that make us sick or even come to attack us in different ways. And sometimes the weather that changes in such a way that we have all kinds of calamities happening. Now, the demigods have been given control of the weather. And when people behave in the mode of goodness, which is material world, is three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When people behave in the mode of goodness, just like in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that, and I think it's chapter 18, text 42, the way in which Brahmanas operate. It's all listed there. Sama, Dhamma, Diksha, they are very tolerant. They're equal to all. They do not project violence on other living entities. They understand the soul and the super soul are in every living entity. And so they are religious. They are, they do all kinds of things that are good for people and good in general for all living entities. Now, when that happens, then the demigods also give us very, very, very nice situations. Good weather. As a matter of fact, when in Satya Yuga, which is the best of the four yugas, what we call the golden age, and that time, the weather is very nice. The demigods make sure that even those that supply rain, Indra, at night it rains. People do go to sleep. They don't work 24 hours. But like some people do, they do a night shift and so on. That doesn't happen. So while they're sleeping then there's nice steady rain, not thunder, not lightning, not hurricanes, no, steady rain. And the next morning, the fields have been all given wonderful. And of course, those who grow vegetables, they get very nice produce from them. But that's basically because people are living in the mode of goodness. Now, people are living in the mode of passion and ignorance. In ignorance, they destroy things, they destroy themselves. And people say, but how can you destroy yourself? Well, if you take things that go into the physical body and it's bad for you, but you do it anyway, you're destroying the physical body. The physical body doesn't belong to us. It's Krishna's. Everything belongs to Krishna. So if people do things like taking intoxications and smoking and all those things, which in fact weaken the body, then they are doing harm to their body. That is also mode of ignorance. And if they hurt somebody else, again, or some other living entity, that's all mode of ignorance. More of that happening, then the demigods will warn us by giving us weather that is not so nice. And so what we're saying is that when the earth people behave in a very, very wonderful mode of goodness way, the demigods will in fact respond by giving us so much in terms of even wealth. The rivers are supposed to be able to give pearls and other gems and so on. We don't find it these days. And I remember when my mother told me when she was young. My mother's right now, when she left the body around 70, she was 75 years old. And she was born 110 years ago. I just counted, so 1913. So when she was younger, that is in the 1920s, he said the man told him, that is my grandmother, her mother told her that in the rivers at that time, in the area where they were living, when it rains, there's high tide because there's more water goes into more rain goes into the water, and then there's a little bit more of a drift of water to the shore of the river to the shore. And when the sun comes up and there's low tide and the river recedes a little bit, then all the children in the village, they will take little containers and they will go to the edge of where the high tide, the water was at, the edge of it, and they look in the sand and they can pick gold dust from it. The children pick gold dust along with the sand, and they all get mixed in, and then they come and they separate it. So gold was very, very abundant at that time. And that was only, 130 years ago? This was in Ghana. That's where I was born. And so even when the British came, they called the Gold Coast for that reason. But, things, when people live in the mode of goodness, then Krishna supplies to the demigods. Wonderful way of living. But when we start working in a mode of passion and ignorance, trying to put Krishna aside and trying to use technology to come up with whatever we say we're going to do in order to control nature, it never works. It only gives us anxiety. And we all have experience in that, the anxiety that we go through. But the other thing, the part of it is that Krishna is always ready to have us go back to the spiritual world. When there's no anxiety, when there's so much happiness, the very thing that will make us extremely happy, it's in the spiritual world. We are in the material world. Therefore, it is very important to take advantage of the simple processes given to us now, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is absolutely critical for us if we want to get out of the situations that we're in now, to get out of it and see the happiness that's there. Krishna knows there's so much wealth in the spiritual world. We are suffering here, trying to make it, trying to get some wealth so that we can pay the bills that come, which is our regular living type of expenses, and then the taxes and so on. You don't have to be taxed in the spiritual world. You don't have to struggle to live in the spiritual world. It is so wonderful there that it is explained that the talking is like singing and the walking is like dancing. Now, just think about it. The talking is like singing, walking is like dancing. It has to be an entity who is in extreme happiness to do like that. And so that opportunity is there. We should not connect so much with the material world, take only what is necessary, but chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And serve devotees, serve Guru, and serve Krishna, who has come in the Archavigraha form, because we don't have spiritual eyes. So he has come in a way in which we can see with our eyes. Take advantage of all of this. It is a privilege to chant the holy name of the Lord. It is actually a privilege. It is not just a requirement, it's a privilege. You're fortunate when you're chanting the holy name of the Lord because you're working your way out of this jail, out of this material world. So Krishna, by his supreme will, can use different situations, like even the Kshatriyas and Dwaka becoming intoxicated and fought themselves when this reeds, it said sticks here. But it was Krishna that did it so that they could all go to the spiritual world. Just like he released so many people, 640 million people in Kurukshetra to go to the spiritual world. We also have our way to go to the spiritual world. The hearing and chanting of the holy name, and how we leave is not important. That is by the will of the Lord. We leave in a physical body, but the Lord is waiting to welcome us in the spiritual world, if only we would take advantage of the situation that we're in now. So, June had been asked by Yudhishthira what happened in the city of Dwarka, and now Arjuna has released the information that there was a curse by the Brahmanas, but it was Krishna, because everything is he's the cause of all causes. By his supreme will, the Kshatriyas fought among themselves. The Yadavas, by the way, the Yadu dynasty, they were the strongest. The Kshatriyas, nobody could defeat them. And so Krishna arranged for them to fight among themselves, and so many of them then leave and go back to the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So if anybody wants to make a comment or ask a question, you can do that now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I joined about 20 minutes late, so I kind of missed the first 15, 20 minutes. But I really like the pastime of Samba. I've heard it many times, but it's so much fun to actually, well, I shouldn't use the word fun, but it's so much nice to actually hear the pastime again. So thank you for bringing that up. Yes, Nitya Gopal Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, wonderful pastime. Pastimes of Lord's associates, even though we don't understand, they have its own purpose and glories. So hearing, it's always purifying and cleansing our heart. So, yeah. One of the point I heard, I don't remember, is it in Srimad Bhagavatam or not? The Lord's associate, Kshatriyas, they were so powerful. When Lord leaves, they will not be control on them. They will go uncontrolled, and that's one of the reason I heard Lord has winded up pastime, and before he leaves, he had taken his associates, liberated associates in the Prabhakshetra. Is that true, Prabhu?
Well, the example here is given in the text itself, that they became intoxicated. So there's always a way in which Krishna starts this situation.
Right.
Yeah. So this time they used intoxication after the yagyas they performed there. So it's not a question of it being true or not true, but there's always that underlying thing is, if Krishna wants people to go back to the spiritual world, he will in fact come up with a way in which that would happen, and it's by supreme will.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, that was the point I was thinking.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice question, Nitya Gopal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We also learned something new. Thank you. Always questions always help us to think, learn something new, remind us more, or broaden our thinking. One of it. So that was nice. Thank you. Any other questions from devotees? Any thoughts, any reflections, any realization? And interestingly, I just noticed that this verse doesn't have a purport, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
In fact, those who were in earlier, I realized that I hit, 2020, when we finished, then I said, I thought there was a purpose, so I hit next. Then it says 24, and I'm going, oops, no. There's no purport.
Yeah,
So
actually, that one there is tomorrow will be a class by Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, so that's what it is.
Okay.
Good. So,
but still, it's a wonderful pastime described here.
It is a wonderful pastime, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how, Srila Prabhupada is saying the translation that, that the Brahmanas were cursed because they all became intoxicated, which is all the pastimes of the Lord, I'm thinking.
They were cursed. The soldiers were cursed by the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas did not become intoxicated. They were cursed by the Brahmanas. So that's what happened. Are you there? You get it?
The soldiers were cursed by the Brahmanas.
The dynasty was cursed by the Brahmanas.
Okay.
The dynasty was cursed by the Brahmanas because what happened was that one of Krishna's sons, Samba, was dressed like a woman, and they made him look like a pregnant woman. And then they went to the Brahmanas and said, "What kind of child will be delivered from this woman?" And the Brahmanas got upset with them and cursed them and says, "Where the delivery will be a delivery of an iron rod, and that will be the destruction of your dynasty." So that curse came from the Brahmanas.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. It's Krishna does so many things at one time.
We learn something, we should not, joke or, offend the Brahmanas.
You shouldn't go mess with Brahmanas and gurus.
Yes.
It's a huge
aparad.
It's a huge aparad and they paid for it. But for Krishna and for Dwarka, that was one way in which Krishna used in order to get them to all leave and go back to the spiritual world. But yes, those of us here, we have to learn you do not put yourself in an aparad situation because you pay a price for it. What happens is Krishna, see, if the devotee is offended, we make him very unhappy. What happens is many devotees who are advanced, they would not fight back, they will be forgiving, but Krishna takes the situation seriously. And so Krishna will chastise before he forgives. So then the idea is not that he just wants to like punishing. No, the idea is you've done something wrong and you have to go through some reprimand so that you would be prevented mentally from doing it again. But devotees don't, they just, amani namana dina, they don't get respect, but they respect others and that doesn't worry them. But Krishna is very, very particular about devotees. So we have to be very, very careful about Vaishnava aparad and offense to Vaishnava. Hare Krishna. I think Ananya Pai.
Yes. Go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very enlightening lecture. Yeah, very enlightening lecture. I really liked it. We have heard about it. Now, when we are talking about the spiritual world, when you were addressing about spiritual world, is it you're talking about the Goloka in this case? So my question is, like, I know all demigods have their own planetary planets, like where everyone seeks to go, like they do the puja, they go there. But now my question was, is there a concept of Swarga and Narka? Is there something called as Narka and Swarga? Like you say, if you do some good things, you are raised to Swarga. If you do something bad, it's all based on your karmas. So I just had this question.
Activities, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is there something called as Swarga or Narka, or is it something that whatever we face now is what we do? It's all the prarabdha, the karmas, what we have to face on this earth. There is nothing called as Swarga and Narka. So that was my question. So is there something called as Swarga and Narka, or is it something like what we face now is what is known as Swarga and Narka?
There are planets. Swargalok is an actual planet. It's in fact also a planetary system. And its ruler is Indra. So Swargalok does, in fact, we are, in Bhuloka, the middle type planet. And then there's Bhuvaloka, which is also pretty similar here, and classified also in the middle for this universe. Then you go to Swargalok, yeah. So there is a lookup, actually planet, where a person is. And then, of course, below the earthly or the medium type planets, as the Pataloka and Ataloka, so many of these hellish planets. So yeah, it is connected with karma. Once a person acts good, like take Brahminical qualities and then literally live their life in the mode of goodness, then they are transferred to the heavenly planets. And sometimes some people do some very, very serious puja also, which takes them to the heavenly planet. That's also there. But basically, it's the behavior and the mode of goodness that takes a person to the heavenly planets. And the more the passion, we stay in this medium type planets like what we're in, working so hard to live. And then when people are destructive and insulting and so on, bad way of living, then they go to the hellish planets. So those planets actually exist, and based on a person's karma, then they go either higher to these planets, the Swarg type, all the way up to Brahmaloka, actually. And those who are doing things that are negative, for the most part in their lives, and don't care to be even asking for forgiveness or reform themselves, then they will have the risk of going to the hellish planets. There's actually more to it. But the difference here for devotees is that we have the opportunity to get out of this whole karma business. Once you connect with Krishna, then the Lord takes care. The same Lord, the Paramatma, the Super Soul, is now responsible, takes charge of your life in terms of the activities. So a person that is surrendered to Krishna now doesn't have to go through karma situation, because they are looking now to go through the path to the spiritual world, which is above Swargalok. Swargalok is the material world, which is a heavenly system of planets. Go way beyond that, out of the material universes altogether, past the boundary of the spiritual world, and then to the spiritual world, where they don't return to this material world. So Krishna, even though there were some demigods who took birth in the Yadu dynasty in Dwarka, they got the opportunity to now even leave the heavenly planets, leave the material world altogether, and go to the spiritual world. Because material world, yeah, the heavenly planets, they have extended sense gratification. There's so much wealth there compared to what's on this planet. And also the lifetime is longer. People live longer there. So that's there, but negativity is also still there, and you don't get away from anxiety, not even in the heaven planets. It's just less, but it's not totally gone. And so a life full of bliss and no anxiety and everything provided, that's the spiritual world. And that's where Krishna arranged for these friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka to go to. We also have a chance to go there by chanting and hearing, just like you're doing now. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Prabhupada.
Any other questions before we add this class? Very nice question, actually. It's a very nice explanation of the differentiation and the variegatedness and the goal of our life. So thank you for addressing that. Any other questions from devotees before we end this class? Anything else? And just a reminder that tomorrow morning we will continue with the next verse. And this time we were able to have a lecture by Srila Prabhupada on the next verse. So that's really exciting. So we ask you all to join us tomorrow morning to hear from our founder Acharya. Until then, we thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful day. Vancha krapatibhyascha. Kripasindavevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day.
Hare Krishna. Jai. Hare Krishna. Glory to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai.